Okay, hello. I think we're live at last. So sorry, guys. This was supposed to be 9 o'clock and, well, it's not. Let's be honest. Slight technical issues, getting the slides up and running. Okay, so what's the plan? I am going to, as much as I possibly can, record how we do with Saff going forward. Saff is our girl. She's reactive. Hasn't always been the case. Puppyhood, it was all well and good. She loved people. She loved dogs. And then at 18 months, everything changed. So I'm going to start recording this. I'm going to start showing it live whilst I'm working with her. I need to get myself some kind of video equipment so that I can do live streams whilst I'm walking her, because obviously handling her and equipment is quite difficult. You'll see I'll do little snippets. They're going to be short little lives and bits of information. So this is why the slides are up today, just to give you some background about her. And then I'm going to work through what we've done to help her through her struggles, where we are now, the biggest impacting factors to her reactivity. We're not going to go through all that today. And then you can see the changes. So I will be doing my training live. You'll see so much as we go through it. And I just wanted to get a diary together of everything that I do with Saff from now on. Why I haven't started this before, I don't know, but this is how we're going to build. So before I do that, before I do any lives with her, and I will be going on sporadically with the lives whilst I'm actually working with her, and then these ones with information I shall actually schedule more. All the lives, everything that I do, I'm going to also collate in our online training portal so that anybody can access it at any time, have a look at the videos that you want to, and it just keeps everything together so that I know where we're at, really. Okay, so great. This is it. This is Saff's journey, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because it's never easy when we're working with dogs who struggle with reactivity. Reactivity is a label. It's not something that she is all the time, but she does have tendencies where she can't cope with certain situations. And we've had to work on that. And those situations have changed throughout her life. She's 6 now. It's been different from puppyhood through to adulthood. But this set of slides today, we're just going to go through background information, what we know, taking her through to teens, and then I shall do some live training with her later today. You can see what we get up to, and then we'll add in more slides further down the line. Okay, so this is Saff. She was officially 15 and a half weeks old, 16 weeks old, got a call from the vet saying there's a dog here that needs rehoming. Can you help? I, of course, went, yes, absolutely, no problems. She came into our lives to be rehomed. We saw lots of different people who came to visit her. And eventually, after a while, my husband said, do you think we should keep her? No, that was a foolish thing to say. Of course, I'm going to say yes. There's no doubt if somebody says, shall we keep a dog? It's a yes from me. Okay, so she was dropped off to this is all the background that we know before she came to us, really. She was dropped off to the previous owner by the breeders. So he had never visited the breeders. We didn't see mum or dad. She was just dropped off. She was sold to him as an American bulldog, and the microchip paperwork or the vaccination paperwork says the same. We believe there to have been very limited socialization during the sensitivity periods, the critical periods, up to that sort of 16-week threshold, due to the fact that she wasn't vaccinated fully, so she hadn't been going out and about, and the personal circumstances of the person who had her before she came to us. The previous owner absolutely adored her and loved her, so we have no stressors there. In the early days, so she was great with dogs, she was great with people, loved to play, she still loves to play now. Very clever, which is lovely. It really helps us train and work together, but she can think things through as well. Toilet training was difficult, but she had been puppy pad trained. So when she came to us, she would find anything that looked like a puppy pad, and that's where she would go toilet. So all the mats were lifted, all the bedding was lifted, anything that looked absorbent that she would go to was lifted. And it took us a little while to get that toilet training under control because we were boarding. And I'll be honest, I wasn't watching her 24/7. So had I been a little bit more intense with the toilet training, I'm sure we could have got it done quicker. But she got there. She's brilliant. She wouldn't dream of going in the house now, obviously. She was always on the go. So behavioural issues that she turned up with, and I'm sure I've forgotten some because it was almost like weekly, and I'd go, oh, we've got that as well. Oh, we're dealing with that. So the behavioural issues that she came along with, resource guarding, barrier guarding, and just a high prey drive. I mean, we've got a cat. They get on perfectly now. But anything that she'd spot, cat, rabbit, pheasant, anything at all, was bang, I'm going to go get that playful puppy kind of behaviour, but with a bit of intensity. So during her teens, she was spayed before her first season. As we go through the slides, you'll see that may be a factor into her behaviour due to different reasons. So we'll go more into that. We had her DNA tested. So although she came to us as an American Bulldog, she's actually Cane Corso, so Italian Mastiff, Boxer, Bulldog, Standard English, and Staffordshire Bull Terrier. She was crated the longest out of all our dogs, purely because if we left her out the crate, she would entertain herself. She'd move the furniture around, chew things up, rip things. She would be, if you left her in the garden for a second, she'd create her own game. We had a bit of wood in the garden and she'd dig underneath it, and then she'd let her ball get caught under there so that she could go in and grab it. And she'd create all these games just to keep her brain active, as well as everything that we were doing. Her sense of smell really kicked in during her teens. Where was I? I was walking across the glebe here on Mersey, and she suddenly ran, and she hadn't run. I mean, again, puppies recall perfect, hit teens, they get more confident, independent, off they go. So she ran across 2 football pitches just because she smelt fox poo, and she needed to go and roll in that. So that sense of smell was increasing, which of course meant that she was picking up the smell of things out and about in the environment, and putting her nose down and really following her nose a lot as well. We carried on training around resource guarding, which was a lot less of an issue by now because obviously we'd put in protocol. We don't go up to dogs whilst they're eating. We don't take things off of dogs. We make them start feeling more comfortable whilst we're around them if they are eating. Her resource guarding was purely around food. It wasn't around toys. She loved sharing a toy. She wanted to share things and play. So it was purely food related. And we got over that quite quickly. So that was during her teens. And we didn't see her reactivity really kick in until she was 18 months. So she was quite old when it really kicked in. So 18 months, hitting maturity. That's when we saw it kick in. I say hitting maturity, breed-wise, not so much. Okay, breed mix. So this information all comes from this book here. I've just taken the information straight out of this brilliant book. I think I've stuck a link somewhere, probably only on the clients only page. I'll stick it in the below section here. This book is a great book for understanding your dog. So it has specific sections in it for certain dogs, the breeds contained within that selection of dogs, what their predatory motor patterns are, what general behavior issues you come across, the things that you'd love about this type of dog. Really great book, gives you lots and lots of information there. So Italian Mastiff is a guardian breed, protective, suspicious, we know that. Big, yep, she's 42 kilos now, so she's not huge, but bearing in mind she's got Staffordshire Bull Terrier in there to bring her down in size, she's a good size. Aggression towards unfamiliar people or animals, especially near home. So that's the protective element coming in there as well. And this is something that they're saying in Meet Your Dog you would see possibly within this breed. This is one of the behavioural issues you come across. Not coming when called. For her, it is nose down, scent driven. We got onto a stage with super recall, no issues at all. That was working wonderfully. She's since had a couple of operations, which we'll go further into detail with later on. And not today, another side. Those operations, whilst she was going through her reactivity in those operations, I had to work a lot on her independence and her confidence building, and she couldn't be off lead for such a long period of time that we're having to go back to that recall training purely because she's now very much a different dog, and we need to have that recall spot on before she's off lead. So we're going back to that amongst all the other things that we're working on. Difficulty in training, resistance to follow directions, not something that Saff has. She's wonderful. She uses her brain. She really loves working. I believe in choice, and I work with my dogs around choice. If they choose not to work with me, that's their choice in that moment, where it's appropriate. Obviously, if there are times where I have to get her doing stuff, then there are obviously times where choice isn't appropriate. Vet's visits, I know she'd much rather not go in, and we are again working on those sorts of things because she had such terrible experiences last year. But she needs to go in, so choice is there as much as possible. I work with her for her to want to work with me. Tolerant patient with those they trust. I mean, absolutely. Resource guarding, well, we know we've mentioned that. So difficulty in training, as I said, isn't something that I've had. The resistance to follow directions, not really something that I've seen, but she is a dog that will communicate very clearly if she's not happy about something. So we do have that. Okay, so the bull breeds in her. Bear with me 1 second. She wants to go out. I'm just going to let her out. Okay. So the bull breeds in her, as I mentioned, we've got Staffordshire Bull Terrier, Boxer, and English Bulldog Standard. They're affectionate. Yes, absolutely. She's affectionate. She's the one dog that wants the touch and the feel and really wants to be with you. Sometimes you're having a cuddle whether you want it or not. Destructive behaviour, especially when left alone or unsupervised. So as mentioned, she was crated for longer than any of the other dogs. Because if we left her, she would do these things, and it was for her own safety. She's fully crate trained, comfortable in a crate, thank goodness, because of the amount of vet visits she's done since. But yeah, destructive behaviour, yep, absolutely, especially when left alone or unsupervised, 100%. Bins have had to be turned around, and we put a stair gate on our pantry just so that she couldn't wander in there and just help herself to stuff. Protectiveness of one or more family members, we've mentioned that earlier when it came across in the Mastiff side of her, and general over-arousal in any number of high stimulation circumstances. And again, this is all information that we got from that book, Meet Your Dog, by Kim Brophy. And that over-arousal in any number of high stimulation circumstances, 100%, 100%. We have a dog with us who can go from 0 to 60 very quickly. We have a dog with us who is fearful of things and can just change. So it's a really difficult mixture. And this is why I want to share her story with you, because some of you will be able to relate to this and go, oh, okay, I've got a dog that's a bit like that, depending on the breeds that you've got. Some of you will possibly follow the story and go, okay, no, all right, so you've worked around this way. All the work that we've done with Saff has always been pain-free, fear-free, and force-free. And when I say force-free, we're not pushing her into situations that she's really, really uncomfortable with. I'm not flooding her. I'm not forcing her into situations unless there is no choice. She doesn't want to go into the vets when she's got an operation happening and she's just had an operation and it hurts. And that particular vet practice isn't her favourite place. But there are times when these things have to happen for her benefit. So we've done all that. Claire, I've just seen that you've asked which book, so I'm going to grab you a link to it right now and stick it in the comments section. So hopefully you can see that come up. Easier said than done. And again, as I go through these lives, do feel free to ask questions. As I say, they're going to be short little sessions of me either working with Saff or giving you some background information, where we've been, what we've been up to, how things have built on from there. So it's always worth... Oh, Claire, sorry, lovely. If you go into the Mersey Mutts Clients Only group on Facebook, there is a link there to that book directly, so you'll be able to see that book there. Oh, got it. Perfect. Lovely. So that's where I'm going to leave it today. I'm going to build these slides up for more information about how we moved on from what we originally saw and what changed, what we think had the biggest impacts into her behaviour. I mentioned earlier that her being spayed quite early on, she was spayed before her first season, could have had that impact. Other factors that we weren't aware of because we only found out last year were her cruciate ruptures, and there could be a link to the spaying around the cruciate disease. So she could have been in pain for a while. And I'll be honest, the biggest change we've seen big changes throughout her life at certain periods of time, and they've gone up and down. It's not been an easy route. But the biggest change we've seen, and where I can make the quickest progress, has been since she has had her operations. So I think pain has been a big factor. And when we look at dogs with reactivity, it's not just correcting what we see, because there's usually there'll be an underlying cause somewhere. It's an emotional response. So we want to change their emotional response, not that. We don't want to stop that reaction in that moment. We want to try and keep them in a space where they don't feel the need to react, so that they can change how they feel about situations, so that they can gain confidence and build from those, rather than being in a stage where they're constantly getting heightened and their cortisol levels are increasing and they're feeling stressed and anxious and fearful. And we don't want to see any of that. And whilst I've been working with Saff, I have worked with her and listened to what she's telling me, so much so that there have been times where we've sat in the garage, I've had a glass of wine, she's had treats, we've just watched the world go by because she can't go outside. It's too much for her. It's overwhelming. There's been times where she's had an interaction where she's coped really well, but actually what happened straight afterwards, coming home, she's dug up a sofa just in a frenzy, because that was her outlet. That was the only way that she could cope. She'd got too much. So it's about working with the dog that's in front of us and dealing with her emotions, and how we've changed that, and how we now have a dog that is comfortable with a lot more, is much more confident, is much more independent. And we've just got a few more hurdles that we need to go through. And that's where I'm going to start recording them and letting you see how we work with her, because there is so much stuff that I do in the house before we go out and about, as well as the things that we do out and about, if she can cope with going out on that day. Now, it's one thing that I say a lot to people that I work with. You've got to work on these things away from the situation, so your dog really understands what's expected of them should that situation occur. There is no point only working with them in the situation, because your dog is over threshold. There's a lovely little slide from Grisha Stewart, which I think I'm allowed to share. I'll get that available and I'll share that in the post as well, which shows what you're looking out for within your dog's body language as to whether or not they're going to be in a space where they're listening, where they're able to work with things. So that's it. That's my little slideshow, my starting point. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to, as much as possible, live record if it's not appropriate because I don't have 5G, 4G available, then I will do unedited videos, which I will pop up as well. And I'm just going to keep that big log diary available of Saff and her progress and how we get to moving her forward from a dog who still struggles in certain situations and move on from there. And I really wish that I'd started this at the very beginning, but you don't, do you? And I think as trainers, as humans, as owners of dogs with reactivity, we generally feel like we're being judged. We have people look at us, we can feel embarrassed, and we need to stand up for our dogs and make sure that they are being advocated for and are in the best space possible. So it's not as difficult as it is for us. It's not about us and how we feel. It's about how our dogs feel and how we can help them forward and the best that we can do for our dogs. And sometimes that is not walking them, not putting them into these situations so that we can work on how they feel so that they can cope better with those situations going forward. And that's a difficult one, because when I say to my clients, I need your dog not to see these triggers whilst we get them more comfortable, whilst we work on certain things, and then we start introducing the triggers and build from there, it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one for people to go, okay, I just need to change how I do things. But it's all beneficial. So I hope that all makes sense to now, up until now, and I haven't babbled for too long. I'm going to leave this live here and then start doing some live training sessions with Saff, and then there'll be some more slides about her information and the things that she has gone through in life, taking her up until the age she is now. Thank you very much.